What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange. I am Trevor Sikkema. With me is Connor Rogers, and today we are breaking down the roster, previewing the 2022 Senior Bowl. Man, I am so excited to get into this, dig into these prospects. Connor, this is an awesome list. I was talking to somebody today that thinks that there might be 70 to 80 of the top 100 players drafted in Mobile this year. That is how good of a talent crop we're talking about this year for the Senior Bowl.
Dude, I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, if you really sift through it, that would be a really high mark. But the point is, this is just an unbelievably talented group, and there is a lot to gain here, right? It's really fun. I just got here. I'm sitting here recording in my hotel, talking to Trevor. And the fact is, and we're going to go through all the position groups today and really pick out our favorite notes and favorite battles and all those things. But there is, it's a couple of practices and a game, but there is so much to gain for each of these guys in one-on-ones and 7-on-7s when the pads come on. So this year, I think this is my 6th Senior Bowl. This one feels the most intense in a lot of areas compared to any other year before.
Yeah. No, I could totally believe that. No doubt about it, man. And for the people who are thinking like, hey, aren't you guys supposed to be at the Senior Bowl together? Well, peek behind the curtain. This is obviously the night before. We're trying to get you guys the content early on. So I'm still in Vegas. I'm flying to Mobile early in the morning, and Connor's already there. He's one step ahead of me. But we will get to the in-person podcast, which we are very excited about for the Thursday episode. But what we are doing here is we're previewing all these guys. We're giving you the names, not just the names that we're going to get the details of, but tell you exactly who is there, because I think that you guys are going to recognize some names as well. But we're also setting the table. We're setting the table with some expectations. So as we go through our next couple of podcasts here, recapping things as practice happens, we'll be able to give you guys a lot of those movements, stock up, stock down, who's on the rise, who didn't look too good, all that stuff. We will keep you as updated as we possibly can from the 2022 Senior Bowl. And Connor, thankfully, and I do say thankfully, we can start with the quarterback position with a smile on our face because, buddy, this group is awesome. The headlines are, of course, all about the quarterback position, but these guys that are in Mobile, man, they're fantastic. We got Malik Willis from Liberty, Sam Howell from North Carolina, Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky, Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. I think we're going to talk about Kenny Pickett a little bit here. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, and then Carson Strong from Nevada. There's reason to watch all of these guys, every single one of them. And so it's going to be, man, every single throw, every time the ball gets in their hands, highly anticipating what these guys are going to do this week. Tell me who you're looking forward to from this quarterback group.
Man, I think we got to start with Sam Howell. And it might not be the guy that I am, putting my name on and saying he comes out of this and is the guy. But he's someone that when it goes back to the opening point of the show, the most to gain. We have to wonder, Trevor, can Sam Howell reclaim what was his? And you go back to the summer, obviously this show hadn't even started yet. There was a lot of different takes with the draft season. Sam Howell was the first quarterback almost in every mock draft. Sam Howell was viewed as this guy as a future top 10 pick and maybe wasn't going to be graded as highly as a Trevor Lawrence and a Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, but graded highly enough, maybe closer to a Mac Jones or even a little bit better, that he can be your franchise starter. And things did not go as well as he had hoped for this year. I think there were some decision-making questions. You have to wonder, is he playing banged up at times? He lost a ton of his skill players. That offense looked a lot different. It actually helped him grow as a runner in my eyes, and maybe that's because he was under duress more often. But I look at this and, we're coming into a week where everyone's talking about Kenny Pickett's hand size or Desmond Ridder or Carson Strong's arm, the hand. But for me, Sam Howell has become the forgotten man of this quarterback class. And I think if he comes down here and just looks the part and is working with a lot of different talent, he can remind everyone, I'm right in the mix here with Pickett and Corral to be the first quarterback taken.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that we could spend probably more time on this position than we will on the other ones because there's so many different storylines. But just kind of touching on Sam Howell and getting to that point, he had an elite PFF passing grade in 2020, and then he had an elite PFF rushing grade in 2021. So he was able to show two different areas of his game that he was able to play really well. Now, what were the circumstances of exactly why he was running a lot more than he was in previous seasons. I think a lot has to do with it was the exodus of talent that he had from last year's class, right? It wasn't just Dyami Brown and Daz Newsome. It was also Javonte Williams and Michael Carter out of the backfield. And make no mistake, those guys, of course, were great when rushing, but they helped in the passing game as well. They were great pass catchers. They were very reliable guys on third down. And this is a huge week for Sam Howell. There's no doubt about it, because I would tell you that I think probably a consensus, and I'm wondering if you hear the same or you might hear different. The consensus with Howell is probably closer to QB3 or 4 than it is QB1 right now. And I think that really, when you look at this whole class, the only guy who is within that mix for QB1 that is not in Mobile is Matt Corral. The rest of them are right here. We've seen Kenny Pickett at QB1, Sam Howell, sometimes Malik Willis, sometimes Desmond Ridder. And the only guy who really isn't there among that group is Matt Corral. And so I think that this could be huge for Sam Howell, and it can be huge for a lot of different guys. But would you agree? Do you think that Howell's probably closer to the consensus QB3 or 4 than 1? What have you been hearing?
Yeah, I do. Right now, as it stands today, I look at this and think everybody, at least the league, is looking at it from a Corral Pickett perspective, right? And then you get into the guys that you can find traits that could sneak into round 1 because of those traits, but are viewed as developmental prospects that have question marks. For me, at the top, it's probably, for a lot of teams right now, a 1A and 1B between Corral and Pickett, and they'll get to see Pickett down here. And I think what you see on tape is what you get with Pickett. What I find interesting with Corral and all of this is he's a guy, if he's healthy, that in those private workouts in his pro day, it's going to look really good. He's going to move really well. He's going to throw, he's going to throw really well in person. He can throw, obviously, off platform well enough. So I think the league is probably looking at it as a Pickett Corral situation. And that's why I opened talking about Sam Howell. He needs to find a way to get back in this thing. And maybe it's not I want to be the first or second quarterback taken. Maybe that is already gone, but maybe it's am I going to be the Steelers consolation prize? Am I going to be the next guy for the Lions behind Jared Goff at the end of round 1? Or is a team going to come back into round 1 to get me and not sweat it on day 2? That's what Sam Howell needs to gain here this week.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the range is pretty wide for a lot of these different quarterbacks. You brought up Kenny Pickett, and his range might be the biggest of, well, I don't want to say biggest, because there are some low floor, high ceiling guys within this quarterback group. But when it comes to Pickett, this guy was at the Heisman Trophy ceremony, right? I mean, like, this guy took the college football world by storm this past year. He played better this year than he ever has in the past, and it wasn't even close. He looked like the most confident quarterback in so many different ways. And was it a perfect translation to the NFL, what we're seeing on tape? No, you loved what Kenny Pickett was doing off platform, but at the same time, he was having really far drop backs, and he was bailing from clean pockets, and he was moving probably when he didn't have to. Not that he wasn't completing things when it was on script. It was just, you could tell that he can't be bailing from those clean pockets as much. He's got to stay Scott has got to stay in the pocket and hang in a little bit more for what the designed play is. But certainly the production isn't really what people are going to question with Kenny Pickett. If it was only about production, he'd be QB1, no questions asked. I think a big question mark for him going into this week is the hand size, right? I joked, I put my hand up because when Connor was talking about the questions for Kenny Pickett, that's the questions that we have here. And, we have our measurements for the Senior Bowl right now as we're doing this show. And a lot of the other quarterbacks, they had everything measured: the height, the weight, the wingspan, and the hand size. And Kenny Pickett was the only one who did not have his hand measured. Now, Tom Pelissero, ESPN.com, he said that there's a good reason why he didn't have his hands measured. And it's not because they're super small. No. It's because Kenny Pickett is double jointed, he says, in his thumb, where his thumb actually, instead of being able to stretch it out all the way, it actually naturally bends in a little bit. So he thinks that by measuring his hand that way, it's going to come across like he has these super small hands. And look, he wears 2 gloves, so it's not like he's got the biggest hands in the world and we're just not seeing it. He wears 2 gloves on game day for a reason. But to put this in perspective of why this exactly matters, it's not like we're just, splitting hairs here between what might be 9 5/8 of an inch of a hand size and 9 3/4. It's different because Dane Brugler of The Athletic said that scouts had Kenny Pickett's hand size down as 8 1/4. If you go to mockdraftable.com,
doesn't exist.
8 1/4 hand size is the 0th percentile. That means that there is not a single quarterback in the NFL, not just a starter, no quarterback at all that has that kind of hand size. And what does hand size matter? Well, it has to do with grip. It has to do with tight spiral. It has to do with holding onto the ball when you've got Aaron Donald hitting your elbow as you're trying to go forward, right? All of these things matter. Control, accuracy, touch, that matters. When you have a bigger hand and you can grip that football better, it helps you. So that's why hand size matters. And we're going to hear a lot of hand size criticism for Kenny Pickett. And it seems silly when he has the tape that he has. But Connor, we're going to talk about this a lot.
I feel like Manscaped is going to find their ways into this somehow with an clever ad read.
I'll have to get creative. I'm
waiting for it. No, but it really does, Trevor. It's a conversation that I think a lot of people like to have fun with on Twitter, and rightfully so. But we have never experienced this kind of threshold, right? We've had it in the past where, people were worried about, like, I think Burrow came in kind of low. Burrow was around 9 inches.
His hands were right at 9 inches, which was 8th percentile, also like extremely low for a quarterback position. I looked it up, and the mean, so the average among all NFL quarterbacks is about 9.5. That's the average. So that's what we're talking. We're talking about less than a full inch with Kenny Pickett if he comes at 8 1/4.
That's the key there. Like traditional scouting, they'll usually tell you a lot of teams will have a threshold of around 9 1/4 or 9 1/8. And if it's below that, you're considered an outlier. And you're going to hear that word a lot on this show going forward. Outlier is something that you don't want to become accustomed or attached to. It's something that the word outlier for a reason. It's something that you're going with very, very rarely. So Burrow was a special player, and you can roll with that kind of outlier. And he was still at 9. So he was kind of right on the cusp there. Kenny Pickett's not even in the stratosphere of what we're talking about. So I know people are going to listen to this and think, you guys are crazy. You're talking about hand size. Watch the tape. But it can matter in certain areas. It can matter, like you said, ball security, grip of the ball. And obviously throwing, it's going to come up when you're playing outdoors in serious conditions. There are situations where it can matter. So listen, is Kenny Pickett not in the first round for me because of his hand size thing? No, that's not the case at all. But is it something that when you evaluate Kenny Pickett, sure, for me, it's two things: age and hand size. Those are the two things with Kenny Pickett for me. Like, I think he checks the boxes in a lot of areas of his game where you evaluate him as a starter, a future starter in the NFL. But with his age, is he maxed out? Because that's something that you're going to take into the grade when projecting him. And then with the hand size, is it going to be an issue at the NFL level? And that's something that I'll tell you right now, I think some teams wouldn't be able to get over it if it came out, around 8 inches. That's just not something on their scale they would be able to deal with, while others are a little different, are a little bit more modern, and can live with it.
I want to hit on Malik Willis in this class because there's a reason why I hesitated saying that Kenny Pickett had the biggest range, where Kenny Pickett could possibly be QB1 or maybe off some teams' boards altogether because of the hand size. The range on Malik Willis can be anywhere right now. And that is because this guy is all tools right now. And there is not a lot of consistent production. And there's going to be a lot of development needed, man. When you go back at Liberty the last couple of years, it's one of the worst offensive lines that I've graded a draftable prospect out behind. There was going to be no growth for Malik Willis this year behind that offensive line. It just was not going to happen. And you saw him make consistent mistakes when it came to timing of play and where to exactly look, how to get through his progressions, when to bail from the pocket, when to stay in, that internal clock that he had in the back of his head when dealing with pressure, all that. It didn't get any better from year to year, from his first year as a starter at Liberty to now. And you look at the offensive line and you go, of course it didn't, right? So this is a player who, when you look at the tools, we talk about this being a little bit of a down quarterback class. Malik Willis has got it, man. I've already seen this guy in person once. I saw him at a quarterback camp this past summer. And let me tell you, it's a laser off of his wrist. He has incredible talent with his arm and also extremely great mobile prospect with his legs. Had an elite PFF grade when rushing and keeping the ball in his hands. So he's got that dual threat ability and you love it. And I would love for Malik Willis to come out over these next 3 days of the Senior Bowl and light it up. And if he does, I'm telling you guys, he's going to be in that conversation for QB1, because you can find a lot of different things that you can nitpick and you have criticism of. But Malik Willis, I still think he's a developmental guy. I'm just letting you know, man, when he throws next to these other quarterbacks, it's gonna look different. You're gonna read that tweet so many times on the timeline. People are gonna say, man, the ball just comes off of Malik Willis's hands different. And that's why I think when you throw in the rushing ability, how the NFL loves to have these mobile quarterbacks who can gain a few yards with their legs, extend plays in the passing game. I still believe that Malik Willis is developmental as a guy, but man, if he has a great week, he really might have the most to gain out of any quarterback in this class.
Yeah, he's got the biggest ceiling of any quarterback in this class. That's just no question for me at all. When you look at Malik Willis, like you said, the build, he's built like a running back with that thick frame at 220. He can run like a running back, but he's got the howitzer with the arm that can really fire the ball down the field vertically. I think when you look at the questions, it's something that's very common for a lot of young quarterbacks. It's the slow trigger at times, right? It's the hesitation to just rip it, throw with anticipation, and then sometimes make those throws anyway, and it leads to turnover. So, and that's not a Malik Willis issue. That's a young quarterback issue across the board. But I think it's, exaggerated at times with Malik's game. And he's somebody that when you get down here, or he's going to, right? This is what's interesting to me, Trevor. He's going to be throwing to better players. This is someone coming from Liberty. Now you're at the best college all-star roster. You're going to be throwing to high-end talents at wide receiver talents that can be top 75 picks that could be starting on an NFL field next year. So is that going to enhance his game and let him get more comfortable and take more chances and speed up that internal clock and trigger? That's why you never really write a guy off until you can maybe see him. This is why it's so valuable being here, to see him in a different situation. So I like that you brought up Malik, because all the tools are there. And I think that I want to see how those tools translate with more talent around him rather than being hamstrung by what Liberty had to offer. And if he, like you said, if he shows that he looks like a different guy out here, and, obviously, they really like coaching him and everybody likes what they see, that's somebody that you draft and go, hey, we're going to draft and stash you. We're not going to throw you on the field right away, maybe for 2-point conversions and goal lines, what I thought the Niners would do a lot with Trey Lance this year. They didn't do it as much as I'd hoped for. And then we're going to develop you long-term, because we like swinging for the fences with your ceiling rather than taking the high floor of Kenny Pickett, right? That's just what it comes down to. And every team's going to be a little bit different.
I think situation for Malik Willis is going to be huge, regardless of how well he plays this week, because, you would almost want him to do exactly what Trey Lance did this year, right? I mean, when you think about teams, one team that immediately comes out to me is the Minnesota Vikings, right? They're not doing anything with Kirk Cousins in the immediate time next year, but if the Minnesota Vikings were able to get Malik Willis, maybe it's even early second round, depending on how he plays, right? And you just stash him behind Kirk Cousins, you give him a year, maybe going into even year 2, you give him some time to continue to develop. That could be a good situation. We will see. That's one that kind of sticks out to me. I'll say my talking points really quick on the other 3 quarterbacks. You let me know your thoughts on them as well. Bailey Zappi, NCAA record breaker when it came to passing yards, passing touchdowns this past season. I'm interested to see what he looks like outside of the Zach Kittley offense. He was the offensive coordinator there at Western Kentucky. Desmond Ridder, a lot of people really love him, and there's reasons to, man. His mechanics are clean. You could tell that he's worked on them. He's an experienced veteran quarterback. He knows what he's doing, makes good decisions, really knows the timing of going through progressions and how to read defenses. The thing that hurts is he's not as accurate as he needs to be sometimes. I'm watching Desmond Ridder, and there are times where it's even easy throws, and I'm like, oh, Desmond, what are you doing? If you're hitting those throws, you've got everything else. But unfortunately, I have those moments too many times. I really do, way more than I thought that I was going to, because I think that there are other times where he is firing it, pinpoint accurate, ball's going exactly where it needs to go with good pace, good velocity. And then he just, touch is so hard to teach. And so that's what really worries me about Malik Willis, or not Desmond Ridder. I put so much emphasis on touch and having that natural ability. And if you don't have it, man, it's hard for me to get over it. And then the last one, Carson Strong, big thing for me, medical checks. What's the knee say?
Sure,
I get to sit down and I get to interview him, and he talked me through his injury. And you can go read that story right now over at pff.com, see all the details and hear exactly how he explained it. But, it's an injury that he had in high school. It actually is something that he said that he probably did something to his knee in middle school and didn't get it properly evaluated, probably didn't have the surgery, and just over time, you're damaging your knee a little bit here, damaging the cartilage. And all of a sudden, it's to this point where, all right, well, maybe the cartilage is dying in his knee. Now he's got to get it replaced. And he had that in high school. He had another surgery to clean it up in Nevada. Love the arm. Think he's got an NFL arm, but is that knee going to check out medically, because I've had somebody, you know, who listened to his story and talk about that, say to me, like, this reminds me of a lot of Brandon Roy's situation. People who are basketball fans remember how great Brandon Roy was for the Portland Trail Blazers. And he had that where he was incredible and amazing, but his knee was just kind of a ticking time bomb. It was just always something that was going to come up, where it was going to be something that he could not overcome, that eventually it was going to be the reason why his career was cut short. So we've seen that. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Carson Strong, but those are my thoughts on those three guys. You got any quick thoughts on them before we kind of move on?
Yeah, I'll start right where I'll pick up where you left off with Carson Strong. You know, the ticking time bomb phrase. I remember that was the exact phrase texted to me when Jay Ajayi was falling in the draft, because I thought he, you know, had first round talent and he's falling. I'm like, why is this happening? And, you know, somebody that was part of the medical process of the scouting department was like, the knee's a ticking time bomb. So we've seen that song and dance many, many times with the NFL draft hurt guys. I hope it doesn't affect Carson Strong, because, like you said, he's got a big time arm. And I just want to see him really, you know, show it off down in Mobile, because that's where he's going to stand out from everyone else. I think he actually might have maybe the biggest arm. It's, you know, it's getting Malik and him probably have the biggest arms here. When you look at Ridder, there's a part of me that wants to be careful, and this might come off as a complete hater, and I hate sounding like this, but, you know, if Ridder comes down here, right, Trevor, and he's really accurate in practice and everything's slowed down a little bit, does everybody overreact and go, well, you told us, you know, he was inaccurate? And it's like, some guys are just, it's different in the games, right? You do need to be careful with the practice reps that you see. And with Ridder, I think that, you know, once again, the tools are there, but I just worry about that accuracy. I think he looks pretty skittish at times, sailing the ball, especially in red zone a lot. So I definitely will keep an eye on him and see if, is there something mechanically that he adjusted and now it's translating to the field. That would be a really big positive takeaway in that situation. And when you look at Zappe, you know, he's someone that I think can project as a really good long-term backup in the league, just because of the processing and the ability to get the ball out and understand the offense and pick apart zone, but also take his shots against man. And he's had a wild road going from Baptist, you know, to Western Kentucky and high flying passing offense. So I think he's going to be that guy that comes down here and, you know, it might not wow you with the big plays, but just does all the little things the right way.
Whew, man, I'm so excited, man. This quarterback class,
awesome.
There is reason to love. Like I said, there's reason to pay attention every single time one of these guys has the ball in their hand. And
they know that coming down here. Like, how do you not know that? These guys, I'm sorry, but they read everything, these guys, right? They read everything. And these guys are looking at one mock draft where they're the first quarterback taken, one mock draft that they're not in. Like, imagine being Ridder right now, right? And I admittedly, and you said it as well, like this podcast is the biggest Desmond Ridder fan. Like, I'm not saying your team should draft him in the top 15 and he's your franchise guy. I think there's legitimate question marks there. Imagine being Ridder, and sometimes you're going, you know, to Washington in the top 15, and then sometimes you're left out of the mock draft, like the stock exchange mock. That's got to be in your head that you want to go down to Mobile and be like, I'm better than all these guys around me. Like Matt Corral's lucky he's not here. It really does get in your head a little bit in a good way.
Oh, it's true, man. There's no shortage of motivation for any of these quarterbacks. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to the rest of the roster. But before we do that, got to remind people that from now until February 14th, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription if you use the promo code, new promo code. I know we said NFLSC. That one might still work, but now you can get 25% off if you use the promo code SUPER25, all caps super, and then 25 right after that. What do you get with the PFF subscription? I'm glad you asked. You get all of PFF's locked content, so all the premium content, all the really great film breakdowns, the advanced analytic numbers, all that kinds of stuff. Taking deep dives into PFF data. You get all that stuff. You get the NFL betting dashboards, the green line tool that we have, the player props, which shows all the over-unders in season. Then out of season stuff, you get the draft guide. You get the fantasy football draft guide. Everything that's got you covered for the entire football calendar, no matter what it is. You get all that stuff with the PFF subscription. Support our podcast. Use that promo code SUPER25 for 25% off any PFF sub right now over at PFF.com. Let's move on to the running back position. You got, what I'll do is same thing as the quarterback. I'll list off all of the guys that are headed to Mobile, and then we'll kind of pick and choose some guys that we really want to talk about. Abram Smith, the running back from Baylor, Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama, Dameon Pierce from Florida, Devontae Price from FIU, Jerome Ford from Cincinnati, Rashard White from Arizona State, Tyler Beatty from Minnesota, and then Zaquandre White from South Carolina. Who really stands out there for you, Connor?
Oh, this is a pretty good group,
It
honestly. And
is.
the Senior Bowl is not really, in my opinion, the place for running backs and linebackers. It's very hard, especially if you're a linebacker and you're exposed in those one-on-ones. It's a tough place. So
Very tough. Very tough.
I think that we have a really good group this year that was eager to get here is a really good sign. So two guys that I want to talk about for me is definitely Jerome Ford. That breakaway speed is something that I think a lot of teams will value in a class that I haven't seen a lot of breakaway speed from this running back class. So who's looking to get the guy that could break the big one? I think Jerome Ford can offer you that. And you got to realize, like, the staffs here do matter. Like the Jets and Lions, I know they each have running backs that, with Swift, the Lions obviously really like him, and Jamal Williams might be back as a number 2. And then the Jets have Michael Carter. But these teams are going to run the ball a lot. It's going to be a staple of what they do. They're looking for more running backs. They're looking for these mid-round guys. So it's going to be interesting to see the staffs they work with and how they can impact that. So Ford is one with the speed. Abram Smith's the other one for me, more for the power. Abram Smith, converted linebacker, not a lot of tread on the tires.
Love
you
it.
watch this Baylor team on both sides of the ball, physical, violent dudes. I can't imagine what those practices look like down there in Texas because there are car crashes on both sides. And you're going to see it with Petrie, as somebody will talk about later in the show. But Abram Smith, I think he's got a good frame, Trevor, a rocked up frame that's compact enough, right? Like when you look at Brian Robinson Jr., really, really tall and a lot of good things in his game, but with Abram Smith, it's just a chiseled up, rock solid frame that's low enough to the ground where he's quick enough to get to the outside. But when you get that freight train rolling down the tracks, the car crashes are real. And he could pick up, hey, there's 4 yards. Okay, I'll take 7. Hey, there's 7 yards. I'll take 11. I like the style of running Abram Smith brings to the game. And, you don't always get to show that off down here in Mobile practices. Maybe we'll have to wait for the game for that. But if Abram Smith can show, hey, I can catch the ball, I can pass protect, people are going to be looking at him and going, this guy's a 3-down back if he could show those things. And that might get him from an early day 3 pick to a legitimate day 2 prospect.
I'm sticking with 2 SEC guys for the guys that I'm really looking forward to. Dameon Pierce from the University
Love
of Florida. As a Florida Gator grad myself, I watch every single Florida Gator game. It was absolutely criminal how underused Dameon Pierce was this past season. This guy was increasing production so much when he got the carry load that he had this past year. He had 106 carries the year before, only 100 this year, and yet he was averaging 4.7 yards per carry last year, 5.7 this year. He had 13 rushing touchdowns. This dude was the best player on Florida's offense, it seemed, and they never gave him the ball.
Barely got the ball. They barely got the ball.
It was truly unbelievable. And the stupid part to me is it wasn't even the fact that when you look at 2020, Florida was passing the ball all the time. They had Kyle Trask, they had Kadarius Toney, they had Kyle Pitts, they had a bunch of other wide receivers. They had all these guys in the passing game. They were a top 5 passing offense in college football. Okay, I can understand why Dameon Pierce isn't getting the ball. It's because you're trying to pass it. You're trying to score more points, trying to light up the scoreboard, which they were. This year, they were a rushing team. They were a rushing team first, and they barely gave Dameon Pierce the ball. I mean, at least relative to what they should have given him, it was just unbelievable. I hope that he gets a lot of traction in Mobile because I think that he absolutely deserves it. Dameon Pierce, if you watch the highlight during rivalry week, was the running back for Florida where his helmet came off with about 5 yards left to get in the end zone. And before they blew the whistle dead, he wasted no time, no helmet, sprinting basically head first into Florida State defenders at the goal line, trucking them over, no helmet, scoring a touchdown. It obviously didn't count, and he actually got a penalty for it, funny enough, because he continued to play without a helmet. But this is the kind of dude we're talking about. This is the running back that you want. And then the other running back that I'm really looking forward to. What'd you say?
Can I throw a comp at you for Dameon Pierce?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's hear it, yeah.
David Montgomery is what I was thinking with him.
It's great.
The same running style.
Great.
Same exact running style. And, shout out to Danny Kelly from The Ringer. He tweeted back at me that, he's a big fan. He said Damian Harris. And I was thinking, man, if you're compared to Montgomery and Damian Harris, everybody knows what kind of back you are right away.
I think Harris has got a little bit more. I think Harris got a little bit more
burst is what I thought. Yeah.
But I do love the Montgomery comp. I think that mentality-wise, that's right there. Tyler Beatty from Missouri is the other guy that I'm really looking forward to watching because Tyler Beatty going into this season is somebody that I was really looking forward to seeing how he would do because I knew that it was going to be his name at the top of that running back depth chart at Missouri. He was really just the scat back, third down kind of explosive running back in the passing game, or if they needed If they needed a really long conversion on third down, they would try to get him the ball and try to see what they could make happen with him. And man, I think he was great his first couple of years in whatever production he had. He only had 48 carries in 2020. Connor, he had 268 carries this past year, had 242 yards last year, had 1,612 yards this year.
That's real.
It's just, these aren't even the same running backs. Even for me, who was really excited to see Tyler Beatty, I don't even know how this happened. He is the first running back since the 2019 season, Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Taylor, to have 4 separate 200 rushing yard games. And nobody talked about it with this dude. He's shown he has the long speed. He's got the soft hands. He's already got the work in third down. Now he showed he could do early down work as well. So really looking forward to seeing both of those guys in Mobile.
Yeah, he's a smaller guy. He came in at around 5'8", maybe even sub 5'8" today, and that didn't affect him with the way he played, right? And that was the question with Michael Carter last year when he came in as sub 5'8" and sub 2 around 201. A lot of people were like, people get so caught up in what it tells you on paper. Then you watch the tape and you look at it and go, it doesn't matter what size they are. They can take on contact. They can take on the heavy workload. They can do the early down work. They can mix it up enough in pass pro that they're not a liability out there on the field. So, it was good to see Beatty get the invite down here because I think he brings obviously that production. And also, I think he just deserves to be here in a good group of running backs.
100%. Let's move on to wide receivers. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, Bo Melton from Rutgers, Braylon Sanders from Ole Miss, Calvin Austin III from Memphis, Christian Watson from North Dakota State, Danny Gray from SMU, Dontario Drummond from Ole Miss as well, Jalen Tolbert from Alabama, Khalil Shakir from Boise State, Romeo Doubs from Nevada, Trey Turner from Virginia Tech, Velus Jones Jr. from Tennessee. Those are the wide receiver groups. Connor, what do you think about these guys? Who really stands out to you?
Yeah, this group has a lot of potential, right? So no Dotson anymore. It sounds like he won't be here. And then Chris Olave did not, accept the invite, I believe Jim Nagy said. So this is the senior wide receiver group. And for me, the question or the storyline here is, can Christian Watson and Jalen Tolbert show that they are for real, right? Because they were men amongst boys at their level of competition. Now you get down here, you're going to get to see some corners, some long, strong corners that are going to get hands on you. You're going to look at them and go, okay, are you going to beat up on these guys now, right? You're going to have some really good quarterbacks thrown to you. Maybe that's an advantage for you. And, when you look at Jalen, he came in at 6'1". I think that surprised a lot of people. I think he was listed at 6'4". Watson, a legit 6'3". I'll tell you right now, Trevor, Watson is going to be, and a lot of people are getting excited about him. I think Watson might be the most underrated wide receiver in the entire draft when you turn on the tape. He has really special ability. He can get open for a big guy. I think he's twitchy enough for a big guy. I like his hands. I like that catch radius. I like that big frame and what you could do after the catch. So Watson and Tolbert are the two that come into this situation. And they don't get mentioned with the top 5 or 6 guys we did on the wide receiver show. They're more in that round 3 range as physical specimens for their level of competition. Well, now you get to show it right here that doesn't matter. You could do it at any level, and you deserve to be in the conversation to be a top 50, top 60 kind of pick. They're kind of on a trajectory like Van Jefferson in a sense right now. I know Van played at Florida, but when Van got down here, he showed how refined he was, how much more of a complete player he was, and that pushed him into round 2. That's what these guys are looking for. What are you looking at with these wide receivers?
Yeah, the guy, honestly, that I'm looking forward to seeing the most and how he plays is Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver from Boise State. I like Shakir a lot. I mean, I think that there's something to be said about Boise State consistently leaning on him as the guy. Anytime they needed a big first down, a big catch deep down the field, something over the middle, they continuously went to Khalil Shakir. And we've talked about him a little bit already on this podcast when we went through our wide receiver rankings, how much I liked his versatility and everywhere that you could line him up. He showed up to Mobile and his arm length was only 29 inches. And that really stuck out to me because when you look at Mock Draftable amongst wide receivers, 29-inch arm length for wide receivers is in the first percentile, which means there are barely any wide receivers in the NFL who are in league with that arm length. It's just you don't see it very often. There's not a lot of success there. And something that I'm really looking forward to watching and seeing how he plays with that arm length is how he goes up against press coverage with a lot of these other corners. If corners get really aggressive with him, is he going to be able to hand fight the way that he needs to, create that separation, even when the ball's coming to him further down the field? If it's any kind of contested catch to the side sideline or wherever it is, can he do a little savvy OPI and get a little separation with his arms in that way? Because he's going to be giving up length to a decent amount of defensive backs, because 29 inches is just, it's not a lot, man. You're going to see it most corners in the NFL who have much longer arms than that. So
slot corners do. That's a bad number.
What? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not great. And there's, we're going to talk about arm length a little bit once we get to corners, but that's one wide receiver who I really have my eyes on. You mentioned a couple that I also have my eyes on there, but Romeo Doubs as well from Nevada. I like him, and I also really just want him to be good because I want to just have the nickname like catching dubs or like stacking dubs, like every time he gets the ball over the middle or grabs a touchdown or whatever it is. Like, I just want to be able to say that nickname. Like that phrase is just fantastic. You see the headlines now. So I'd love him to be good, not only because I like his tape being on the other end of a lot of really pretty Carson Strong passes, but also because of the nickname factor goes into it.
The speed is real with him. You see it. It's not just build up speed. He's got good acceleration. He's got that long, slender frame. It reminded me a little bit of what Robbie Anderson was doing at Temple, where you look at it and go, maybe nobody really cares at the time because it's Temple, and but he's somebody that's a little skinnier than your typical wide receiver, but doesn't really affect his ability to get down the field vertically. And I think we saw that with Doubs, at Nevada, especially when you have the quarterback and Strong that could hit him in stride.
Yep.
So he's someone that he can come down here and just run by you. And a lot of these wide receivers, they're not the fastest guys. So that's a good takeaway skill set for him to come down here and differentiate himself. Really
good way for him to stand out for sure. Tight ends. We got Charlie Kohler from Iowa State,
awesome
Cole Turner from Nevada, Connor Hayward from Michigan State, Daniel Bellinger from San Diego State, Grant Calcaterra from SMU, Greg DeLuch from UCLA, Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, Jake Ferguson from Wisconsin, Jeremiah Hall from Oklahoma, Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State, and then Trey McBride from Colorado State. Where are we starting here, Connor?
I mean, McBride's the best tight end in the entire draft, and it's a little bit of everything, right? This to me is just such a loaded group. You have McBride, who's the best tight end in the draft, high effort blocker, really good after the catch, catches everything, maybe the best hands of all the tight ends in the entire draft, understands how to get open, has good size. He's athletic with the ball in his hand. So, and he's been really productive, which is not something you see from college tight ends, honestly. So McBride's the clear cut guy, but then everybody does something a little different, right? Trevor, you have Ruckert, who's an excellent blocker and can provide you a red zone threat. You have Ferguson, who's an excellent blocker and hauled in 30 catches per year over a 4-year stretch. That's a really consistent number that you like to see. DeLuch is somebody that I think can offer you a lot after the catch. This is a good group. Bellinger, I liked his blocking tape a lot. And I was really surprised with how he looked on tape as a blocker week in and week out. So the story for this group is if you need a tight end, and I'm not saying a number one. If you do, you could find one. There are number one tight ends here. But even if you need that number two that can block or that number two that can move the chains on these 6-yard passes over the middle of the field, you can find your guy here. I don't think there's a player in this tight end group that will not be drafted. I think they'll all be drafted. And I think at least a handful go in the top 100 picks easily. I think McBride goes in the second round.
Yep.
Then I think when you look at it, like Ruckert's going to go in at least the third round. This is an NFL caliber group across the board.
I would be so shocked if Trey McBride is not the first tight end off the board. He has to.
Me too.
He led the country in receptions, receiving yards, first down catches for tight ends. I mean, he was Colorado State's entire offense. Like, I have rarely seen a team emphasize a tight end before. In fact, there was one game this year against Toledo. This is my favorite Trey McBride stat. Colorado State had 110 passing yards in the game. Trey McBride had 109 yards. He had all but one of the team's passing yards. One went to him. Unbelievable. He was their entire passing offense. And you're right. He brings it all to the table. I had a chance to do a feature on him early on in the season. Dude loves football. He seemed like such a great dude, super driven. I would be so shocked if he wasn't the first tight end off the board. And I think that he is going to absolutely shine in Mobile, even amongst a really nice tight end group. When we talked at the top of the show, hey, a lot of the top 100 players are in Mobile this year. a lot of the top tight ends are in Mobile this year. Like most of these guys are going to be the top tight ends drafted in this entire class. Also, shout out Grant Calcaterra, man. Really highly touted Oklahoma prospects. Had to retire a couple of years ago from concussions. He was afraid that he wasn't going to be able to handle those. Ends up taking a full year off, decides to come back, plays in SMU, was on the receiving end of a lot of Tanner Mordecai passes this past season. And now here he is getting to make the jump to the NFL. And obviously I hope that everything is great with his health and his concussions and everything, but it's just, it was a sad story when a kid who has such a bright future is forced to give up the game before they even get to the pro level, before they even reach their dream because of something like that, because of injuries, this time concussion related. But certainly hope everything is okay with him. All the medical checks have checked out, and I'm sure that that's the case because he played at SMU. But just a really cool story, the fact that he's in Mobile after everything that he had went through.
A super talented guy, and it was all there on Oklahoma. When you look at how he was used at Oklahoma like a wide receiver, and then you see it at SMU, the receiving ability, I think he has gotten better as a blocker. I don't think it's the name of his game necessarily. And you look at so many of these teams, utilizing the tight end screens, that's going to be where you can get Calcaterra involved. So it's great to see him back on the field.
Interior offensive lineman, Cole Strange from Chattanooga, Dylan Parham from Memphis, Ed Ingram from LSU, Justin Schaefer from Georgia, Ledicus Smith from Virginia Tech, Luke Fortner from Kentucky, Marquise Haynes from Oklahoma, and then Zion Johnson from Boston College, who we like here, Connor.
Well, Zion's the best of the bunch, right? I think that's the one that you look at and just go, he's the clear cut, the best one. And he's someone that played guard, then tackled, and went back to guard. And he just looks like a guard. And I'm curious to see if they work him out at center here as well. Kind of short and stout, but also measured in really well with long arms. So now you don't worry about the arm length issue for offensive linemen that are a little bit more compact. And what you get with that compact build is more raw power, more leverage, and more driving power. So that's what Zion has. And you see it on film. He can throw linebackers down the field. And I think the feet are good enough. And he's going to be a really good interior offensive for a long time. Lineman for a long time. Trevor, the guy that I'm looking at that's just not the chalky pick is Cole Strange, because you turn on a film against Kentucky and it's like, this guy is kicking ass out there against Kentucky. So there is no level of competition question that he doesn't have that fear. And I think he's going to come down here and show that against more players like the Kentucky players. So Cole Strange, somebody that, you're kind of surprised when you look where he's coming from, but then you turn on the tape and see, no, this guy belongs on an NFL field.
Man, the other guy outside of Zion, which I agree with you, I think that he's the top name to know from this group. Luke Fortner, the center from Kentucky. Man, I was watching Darian Kinnard early in my scouting process because Kinnard's got that potential first-round buzz with him. And there were a couple of games where I was watching, I was like, yo, who is this dude in the middle, though? Like, he is erasing people. It feels like he is a spit and vinegar guy, a dude that was just going to fight you on every snap. And then I watched the Georgia game and he went up against Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. And okay, well, you're not really going to Right. Jalen Carter as well. And so that was one of his worst games that I saw. But I'm very intrigued and I'm glad that he is here because I was really impressed with a lot of what he put on tape outside of that Georgia game. I think that everybody would really struggle against those three behemoths in the middle. But outside of that, man, I really thought that there were flashes of him being really aggressive, playing really well, very physical in the middle. And I just thought that he was really bringing it. He was bringing the attitude. He was bringing the physicality along with Kinnard. And I felt like that was an identity of what was Kentucky's offensive line this year. And I think Fortner really showed that in the middle. I don't know if you had a chance to watch him or not, but yeah, those are, I would say, you mentioned Strange. That's good. And then I think that those are probably the best names to know in the group.
I mean, think about who he practiced against every day, Trevor. A big bully ball McCall.
That's true. So he probably is pissed off all the time.
Yeah, I mean, bully ball McCall, who you guys said was giving Zion's teammate Lidstrom a lot of problems.
Yes,
that's how you get so much better. So yeah, you're right about the identity of the Kentucky team, and it's funny with the center group because Linderbaum is a special center prospect this year. We probably get a Linderbaum once every, I don't even know, 7 years, I would say like that. Linderbaum's the best center he's the best center I've evaluated while doing this. And it's made us not talk about any of the other centers in this draft. So I really like you going to that point.
Yeah, him going up against Bully, against Markel McCall, man. Beef sharpens beef. That's what I always say. It is very funny because I'm looking at PFS measurement article right now. That's how I'm reading the list of these guys. They have interior offensive linemen, and then they have them categorized as exterior offensive linemen, which I've never heard.
Never heard that in my life.
So not sure who typed in that copy, but I might have to have a conversation with somebody. Anyways, the offensive tackles from this group. You got Abe Lucas from Washington State. Andrew Stuber from Michigan, Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan, Braxton Jones from Southern Utah, Cade Mays from Tennessee, Chris Paul from Tulsa, Daniel Falele from Minnesota. Oh, man, that guy is Godzilla. An absolute, truly. Darian Kennard from Kentucky, Fortner's teammate, is also here. Jamari Salyer from Georgia, J. Tyler Carter from Southern, Luke. Oh, I don't even know how to say his name. Do you know how to say his name? Godecki?
I've been saying Godkey, but
Godkey? Oh,
before the draft, I will definitely check the pronunciation.
I think it might be Godecki, but we got to check on that. Okay. From Central Michigan, Matt Waltzko from North Dakota State, Max Mitchell from Louisiana, Nick Kauji from Fordham, Spencer Burford from UTSA, and then Trevor Penning's the last guy on this list from Northern Iowa. Man, other than being a mouthful of names to be able to pronounce here, really put me on the spot, making me sweat. Who else are we looking at that we really like here, Connor?
Yeah, I'll go with Spencer Burford, right? Because a lot of those names that you read, we talked about maybe on the mock draft show, or they're all going to be filling out the offensive line preview. A lot of you guys are familiar with them. They're the hot, buzzy names. But Spencer Burford, Trevor, is the one that I watched, one of my last Senior Bowl watches before I got on the plane. Really cool story, right? UTSA's first 4-star signee ever. And I think he's local, so it was cool that he stayed there. He goes and starts at left guard for 2 years, and then he started at left tackle the last 2 years. So you have the position versatility with him. He's explosive. You do not want to get in his way when he's pulling, because if you're in his path, it's like a slingshot. The way it's like it's like that wrecking ball mentality of him coming downhill and clearing out a lane. Plays with a lot of fire, plays with a lot of energy. He's been an anchor on that offensive line. He really is a true cornerstone on that offensive line. And it was cool to see him do it as a really young guy at left guard and then transition to it from left tackle. And it goes back to a little bit with the Traylon Burks story, where you're a 4-star. You can go play for a big-time program, and you decide to stay local and build something and really still develop and show the work ethic you have as a player and show that high compete level on tape. So Burford is someone that it really gets no buzz, honestly. It's shocking to me. I think when people watch his tape, or now they'll get to watch him down here, they'll come away and go, man, at a minimum, I have a left guard, a starting left guard, but maybe he's a left tackle of the future. So loved what I saw, especially as a run blocker.
Man, I guess my name to know outside of like Trevor Penning and Bernard Raymond would be Max Mitchell. And he was in the back end of the first round of my mock draft that we did on the very first episode that dropped last Monday. And man, I think he's good. I really do. He brings some really great size and speed, man. He's 6'5", about 300 pounds. He's probably got to pack on some extra beef headed in the NFL to make sure that he can hold up. But 33 and 5/8 inch arms. I mean, I think he checks the boxes there. He's got an above 80 wingspan, and he just moves really well. I think he's got fantastic movement skills. And yeah, I do think that he's a guy who needs to add a little bit more strength to make sure that he's not getting pushed back too much. You know, people talk about him getting knocked back a little bit, getting on the heels, the feet kind of fly up and you get out of control a little bit there. He definitely needs to work on that, get some extra sand in the pants, hopefully add some weight to the lower body and really be a little bit tougher to move. But love the movement skills, man, especially where the NFL is going. Obviously, you want to be able to beat people up front, but we're seeing a lot of teams do a lot more outside stuff and outside zone, inside zone, all that kinds of step blocking schemes. And I think that Max Mitchell can really be a perfect addition into kind of where the NFL is going by spreading out the offensive lines a little bit, especially for those teams that want to get faster everywhere, not just in their receivers, in their running backs with their quarterback, but also along their offensive line as well, because it's got to all kind of be in mesh, right? It's got to be the same kind of group. You can't have these you can't have like a speed tempo offense with all of these deep downfield, quick hit kind of players, and then have these beefy 330, 335 offensive linemen that have to keep trying to get their conditioning up to get down the field. No. It takes kind of a whole cohesiveness when the offense is there. And I think that Max Mitchell really checks those boxes. But other than him, man, I think the Penning, I think that Bernard Raymond, man, it's just, such a cool story. If you missed the last time that we talked about it, Raymond, originally from Vienna, Austria, started off playing tight end at Central Michigan, and they ended up packing a lot of weight on him, putting him at tackle. And again, this is another guy who's got fantastic movement skills, man. I really like him. I think he is going to solidify himself as a first-round prospect. I think he's going to get drafted above Trevor Penning when it's all said and done. Maybe I'll have to shut up and maybe I'll eat my words, and Trevor Penning's going to absolutely ball out this week. But I really do. I have a lot of faith in both those guys. I think they're fantastic, but I think Raymond's a little bit better. He's higher on my rankings. And so those are the three guys really that I'm the most looking forward to.
And I think it's one of the more underrated storylines of the draft is, that next wave of tackles, that next tier of tackles, how do they come off the board? Who's going to, how is it going to be shaken up between three of the guys you named, Penning, Max Mitchell, Raymond, and then I would put Darian Kinnard in there as well, right? Yeah. So I think
do you think he's a tackle? What do you think?
So I'll say this. When I watched him over summer, I did not think he was tackle. I did not think he had the initial foot quickness. Now, there is a lot going around, and I'm sure we saw weigh-ins today, but before that he is really gotten, very fit, very slimmed down from what he was, and maybe he looks like a different player down here. So I do want to give him that chance. I do want to see how he moves. The tape to me always said, and you said, Kentucky had this identity of like, we're just bigger and stronger than everyone. Yeah, right, so maybe that was how they had the program they had him on. And now I think he is working with Duke Manyweather. I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure.
I believe he is as well. I think he is.
Is he going to transition his body a little bit to play tackle? Because he's very talented and he's a total game changer in the run game. But you just wonder, I saw him get beat a lot by outside speed moves, and where that was like one of those situations where like, okay, should he kick inside or is he going to hang a tackle? So it's for this process, for me to be this far in the process and still be a little unsure, makes him so intriguing in that debate between Penning, Mitchell, and Raymond as well.
He'd have a lot of really good length if he was a guard. Now, I will say, I watched him as well, and I thought he played well enough at tackle to where I have him in both categories. I have him ranked as a tackle. I have him ranked as a guard. I like him better at guard, but this is truly a player. We say this a lot, and I think we say it way too much. This is truly a player who can play both. Sometimes we look at these guys and we go, okay, well, he's not quick enough to play as an offensive tackle, but he's not like really big enough and powerful enough to play on the inside. So I'll call him a tweener. Like I'll call him this like reserve guy who could play a bunch of different spots, especially if he has experience in all these areas. And sometimes it's just not true. Sometimes it's a master of none situation. I truly think Darian Kinnard has the ability to play both. He has the length, and he has pretty dang good tape this past year to be able to hold up at offensive tackle if you want to play him at offensive tackle, if you want to develop him there. But man, if you want him at guard, I think he'd be a fantastic guard for you. So I really do. We say it a lot, but I really do believe it. I think that he could play any position. Before we move on, man, we got to mention Daniel Faalele, the offensive tackle from Minnesota, his measurements. Okay. You guys sitting down listening to this podcast? If you're not sitting down, sit down, please. You will out of fear after you hear these numbers. 6'8". These official numbers. This ain't school fluffed bullshit, okay? 6'8", 387 pounds, 35 3/8 arms, 86 1/4 inch wingspan, 11-inch hands. This is the stunt double for the mountain in Game of Thrones. That is what the comp is for this dude. There's nobody else who's close. That's my official comp for this dude. He showed up, and if there's anybody who wins the weigh-ins anymore, it was Daniel Faalele.
Yeah, the long-lost son of Andre the Giant, Faalele. I feel like if we're going to be at the media breakfast, we're going to like feel the walls start to shake when he's walking in to get breakfast. And what's crazy? And I don't think he looked sloppy in pads. Like when you hear 387, you're like, really didn't. You're like thinking like, oh, well, this is going to be rough. Like there was times where like I think back to evaluating, because there's only so many humans that are this large. Like there was rumors that Becton at times in college ballooned up to 385, and like Becton at 385, that's not good. Like that's not going to look good. Becton at 365 is unbelievable, but 385 does not look good. With Faalele, it's like, no, I think like he legitimately can carry around like 380 pounds. That is beyond absurd.
Yeah, truly crazy. Before we flip over to the defensive end, it's everybody's favorite man. It's everybody's favorite.
It's time.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let a wild pube wreck you. That's right. You guys heard me right. I said it. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and our sponsors at Manscaped are here for you with the best tools to get your balls ready for the special occasion. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leader in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. The holidays went by so quickly. Did you remember to take care of your own package while making everybody else's? The best tools for the job is the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. It's just the thing that every guy needs in their life to make each day a little more special. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code PFF at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use promo code PFF. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day. Interior defensive linemen, some studs among this group. The first one's Devontae Wyatt from Georgia, Eric Johnson II from Missouri State, Logan Hall from Houston, Haskell Garrett from Ohio State, John Ridgeway from Arkansas, Neil Farrell Jr. from LSU, Odio Ogbonia from UCLA, Travis Jones from UConn, Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma, and then Fedarian Mathis from Alabama. Who's sticking out to you in this group, Connor?
Oh, Logan Hall, probably, for what he can do to wreck the interior. I think that's the safe one. But when you look at Mathis, I mean, somebody that was just so impressive every time you watched Alabama this year, his ability to control the point of attack on the interior is, that matters a lot in the NFL. Can you hold up at the point of attack on early downs and control the run game and control your gaps? So I think Hall is the guy that I want to see as a disruptor, and Mathis is the guy I want to see as the contain and power guy. What are you looking at, Trev?
Devontae Wyatt is my favorite defensive lineman here amongst this group. I truly think that Devontae Wyatt, the only reason why he was not talked about more as potentially one of the best, maybe even the best interior defensive lineman in this class, is because he was next to Jordan Davis, and Jordan Davis was getting all the highlights. Man, Devontae Wyatt, he's a little bit smaller, but of course, everybody's a little bit smaller than Jordan Davis. Devontae Wyatt comes in at 6'3", 307 pounds, and I thought he was a fantastic one-gap penetrator, man. He played with such great strength. I thought he was able to get into the backfield so easily. Maybe that was because Jordan Davis was running next to him, but anytime anybody was one-on-one with Devontae Wyatt, it felt like Wyatt was getting the upper hand on him. I've got Wyatt as a potential first-rounder in this class. I think he's absolutely fantastic. He is definitely slept on in my mind. And another guy that I want to give a shout-out to, John Ridgeway from Arkansas. His nickname's the Vanilla Gorilla, and man, he is strong. This dude's an absolute house in the middle. Him and Trey Williams for Arkansas all year long were playing really, really well. This was a defense that continually used just 3 down rushers in their front, and I think a big reason is because they knew they had big John Ridgeway in the middle, that he was going to be able to hold the point of attack against 2 guys, really be able to play that 2-gap style of defensive line play, whether it was a 3-tech, sometimes no, sometimes 0. They'd put him out at 5 just to switch things up. But I just think that he was such a force in the middle. I'd love to see him show up and play with a little bit more speed. But I think, when we get to those scrimmage, those full 11-on-11 periods, I feel like this is a guy who's really going to push people around this week. And he's going to impress in a lot of ways when it comes to those run defense reps.
Yeah, big, powerful hands, right? I think that's what jumps out to you right away. I can't get over that nickname. I've just been sitting here trying to wrap
Gorilla,
my head.
baby.
It is just truly, truly perfection. So yeah, this D-line group has kind of gone from really uninspiring to maybe almost too underrated at this point, where it felt like, oh, there's no players in this draft at D-line. And then you look at the Senior Bowl group and go, no, there's just role players is kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, you look at guys like Perion Winfrey as well from Oklahoma, Fedarian Mathis. These are guys who have pretty good tape. I like Mathis a lot more than I like Winfrey, but I think there's a lot of guys who maybe there's not a ton of first rounders, but that's why
they're going to bring first rounders.
They're going to bring the beef, man. They're going to bring the beef. They're going to beef up a depth chart, full pun intended. And I think there's a lot of guys to definitely get excited about when you're watching the middle of these players. Let's talk about the edge guys, the flashier players. Amari Barno from Virginia Tech, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, Boyd Mafe from Minnesota, Cameron Thomas from San Diego State, D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky, Dominique Robinson from Miami of Ohio, Isaiah Thomas from Oklahoma, Jermaine Johnson II from Florida State. I know he's got a lot of fans. Jesse Luketa from Penn State, Kingsley Inigbare from South Carolina, Kyron Johnson from Kansas, Majai Sanders from Cincinnati, Tyreke Smith from Ohio State, and Zachary Carter from Florida. Who we talk about here, Connor?
I mean, Ibikiti can come in and just absolutely wreck shit. You know, when you look at him from Temple and then what he did at Penn State, I mean, he can really, if you're looking for a stand-up rusher that can explode off the edge, can counter inside, can win outside with speed, can close quickly on the pocket. Ibikiti is somebody that can come in here and make it a long day in one-on-ones for a lot of these defensive linemen, even though he's not the biggest player in the world. The two players that I come in here and, you know, look more for question marks right now, you know, but his Cam Thomas still locked in for this name. That was a long list of edge rushers. Trevor.
Oh, shoot. Can you hear me? You got me?
Yeah, we're gonna have to just make sure we have the editor do a pickup there.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you say Cam Thomas didn't drop out, right?
No, he's still there, I think.
Okay, cool. That's what I was asking you, but I think we just completely lost connection.
No, he was on the measurement list, so you can go right there.
All right, so I'll pick up.
Okay.
All right, picking up from the Ibikiti rant in 3, 2, 1. You know, the two guys that I come into this with the questions about, and it could be good or bad, is Kingsley Enagbare, right? Okay. Who has just some wild tape. He can play with a lot of power, has the length. And then when you look at Cam Thomas, he's somebody that the stat sheet really impresses you when you look at the sacks. Then you watch all of those sacks, and a lot of them were coverage sacks or on stunts. So I want to see, is it, you know, does effort always translate here, or at some point do you need a specific trait or skill set that can get you on the field as a pass rusher rather than just relying on your cornerbacks and give you the cleanup work? So that's what I kind of look at for Thomas. And I think even with Enagbare, I think there's a lot of teams that are wondering, you know, is he explosive enough, right? That's the big question. Does he have the get off here, or is he just going to play with a lot of power, really a lot of power and leverage for the most part? So I think there are two guys that are penciled into round 2 right now, and they can answer some questions to get them in that conversation around 1. I don't think it's going to happen. I think both are destined for round 2. And then I look at Ibikiti as the guy that might be a little specific, because I think teams that are looking for more of that stand-up profile might like him more, but they might love him with his ability to come off the edge. It's like the Ajabo backup, right? That's kind of how I look at Ibikiti.
Right. No, yeah, I think that he was so high on PFF's grades all season long. And then I went back to watch his tape, and I came to the same conclusion you did. There's a lot of either unblocked stuff, coverage sacks.
It's not impressive.
You know, it's just, there wasn't a lot of like one-on-one. He's winning with a long arm. He's swimming a guy. He's doing a push-pull. He's hitting a spin move. Like, there just wasn't a lot of one-on-one wins, which is okay, but I'd like to see a lot more of that, hopefully, in Mobile. The guy that I'm going to highlight is Jermaine Johnson from Florida State.
Oh, yeah.
This is a dude who, you know, he was at Georgia, transfers over to Florida State. When I watched him originally, I wasn't the biggest fan because, and not that he was bad, I just thought that he was all power. Like, I thought he was a true base 4-3, 5-tech defensive end who was just going to go straight up against offensive tackles, hold the point of attack, and be good for you in that regard, not really bring a lot of upside to you in the passing game. And then I kept watching. There were a couple of plays where I went, whoa, what? Like, I didn't think you were about to pull that off. I didn't think you were about to hit the outside shoulder like that. Yep. I didn't think you were going to burst off the line of scrimmage like that. And so let's see a little bit more of that here in Mobile. And people are really going to start to talk about Jermaine Johnson as a potential first-round pick here in the upcoming draft, man, because he brings the strength game. He really does. He'll hit you like a ton of bricks, man. If you're not ready for it, this dude will push you at the point of attack and out punch. But, you know, we get a couple more of those really nice pass rush reps, which we saw some glimpses of in flashes this year. And all of a sudden you're going to get people to talk for sure.
Yeah, it feels like it goes back to the Fayed conversation with Shrine, right? That's kind of Jermaine Johnson this year, where the toolbox just opened up and you're seeing all kinds of different moves. So it is that long arm ability, whether it's the ability to start work the outside speed rush and let the tackle overset and then start to counter inside. And he has the power, but also the quickness to do that, to counter inside. So, and it's just a relentless effort, right? That's the thing when you look at, you know, kind of how Cam Thomas, he was just relentless. And you don't want to discount those numbers because you do get credit for that, but you just wonder, are you going to be able to win that way? Like, the one way I saw Cam Thomas actually win as a true pass rusher was kind of kicking inside and an arm over move. That was the one way. But when I talk about like Jermaine Johnson, like you just brought up, there's countless ways a guy like that wins off the edge.
Yeah.
And those are usually the guys that translate.
Let's move on to linebackers now. We got Aaron Hansford from Texas A&M, Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma, Chad Muma from Wyoming, Channing Tindall from Georgia, Damone Clark from LSU, Darian Beavers from Cincinnati, Marco Jackson from Appalachian State, Troy Anderson from Montana State, Terrell Bernard from Baylor. Who stands out to you from the linebacker group?
With Devin Lloyd, pulling out, it's the Muma show for me. Everybody's looking for 3-down linebackers. Everybody's looking for guys that can run and chase, run and cover, can blitz, can really handle this kind of role of a Superman at linebacker. And we know Lloyd can do that. Lloyd can step out the screen game. Lloyd can run sideline to sideline. He can shoot gaps downhill. He can read and react to the run. He can run the seam with tight ends. I think now Muma gets the spotlight of all of those things because he can do those things. When he sees it, he gets there. It's see ball, get ball, but it's also the athleticism in the middle of the field. He's got the size. So for me, I think both of these teams, both the Lions and the Jets coaching it, are dying to get a 3-down kind of linebacker like that in their systems, and a lot of teams scouting here as well. And that's a great opportunity for Muma, who would have got overshadowed by Lloyd a little bit. Now he's the guy.
Yeah, the two guys I'm really looking forward to seeing, one is Channing Tindall from Georgia. This dude's got a ton of speed when it comes to pursuit, man. Whether it's behind the line of scrimmage, at the sideline, whoever he's going for, whatever kind of ball carrier, quarterback, running back, wide receivers on a screen, anything, man. This guy's got serious speed to go from one end to the other. It was him and Nakobe Dean in the middle of that Georgia defense. And the thing that I'm really looking forward to the most is seeing how he can really communicate with the rest of the defenders and honestly be able to have enough confidence in what his role is and where he's supposed to be within a new defense that he is learning for the first time this year, or first time this week, because from what I am told, Nakobe Dean did a lot of the communicating for that Georgia defense. It was a lot of Nakobe Dean making sure the defensive line was where they needed to be, communicating things on the back end with the secondary. And he was, communicating things with Channing Tindall, but it was more of like, he was kind of telling Tindall exactly like, hey, here's the play. This is what we're doing. And Tindall was like, okay, I got my role.
He would scream at him when he had to.
Well, I mean, we did see that a little bit. What was that in the national championship game, or was it in the Michigan game, something like that? And so, I am looking forward to see how fast he can play, because that will hopefully tell me how quickly he was able to pick up what his role in the defense was. And hopefully we'll be able to see some communication skills there from him as well, because this dude's got the athleticism to be great. The other guy, Darian Beavers from Cincinnati. This dude's got over 700 snaps as a special teamer. 700. That's nuts. It's crazy. He's a downhill linebacker. He'll hit you. He'll be aggressive. He's great in pass rush. He's great when he's going towards the line of scrimmage, heading to the backfield, whether it's getting to the quarterback or the running back. I'm excited to see him as a big-time downhill guy, see what they can do when blitzing him. And, of course, I think that he's going to make a name for himself on special teams as well. Secondary. Let's round it out. We have them all categorized as secondary. So I'm just going to list off corners and safeties. You throw out a couple of both, whether it's a certain corner, a certain safety, and we'll kind of wrap up the positions here. Caleb Evans from Missouri, Alontae Taylor from Tennessee, Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska, Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, Damari Mathis from Pittsburgh, Darion Kendrick from Georgia, Jalen Petrie from Baylor, Jalen Watson from Washington State, JoJo DeMan from Nebraska, Josh Thompson from Texas, Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State, which is in North Carolina, JT Woods from Baylor, Kirby Joseph from Illinois, a safety that's getting a lot of buzz, Leon Neal from Texas A&M, Mario Goodrich from Clemson, Roger McCreary from Auburn, Sterling Weatherford from Miami, again of Ohio, how about this? Tariq Carpenter from Georgia Tech, Tariq Castro Fields from Penn State, and Tariq Woolen from UTSA. We got three Tariqs. We got three Tariqs in this.
That's going to be confusing.
There's no way that's ever happened before. Tyson Anderson from Toledo, Yusuf Corker from Kentucky, and then Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. Give me a couple of secondary players who you really like before we get out of here.
Yeah, so McCreary is probably the best one of this group and is expected to go in the first round. And then one I'm really excited to watch, Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State. Last time I checked, Trev, he's the only Division II invite this year. So all eyes on Joshua Williams. Receivers and those one-on-ones, you were at a disadvantage out of the gate, but he's long, he's strong, he can run. I want to see how the instincts, turn on against guys that are a little bit more polished than what you're used to playing. So I'm excited to see Joshua Williams go out here and prove that he belongs. And then out of the safeties, you look at Petrie, they've lost a lot in this group. This group has been hit hard. A lot of the top safeties that were expected to be here had to pull out because of injury. Speaking of hit hard, that's what Petrie does. Petrie comes downhill.
Good transition.
Good lays the wood, man. He's for real. He's physical. Maybe he can be that poor man's Cine of this class, Lewis Cine of this class. When you look at that, you're looking for a player that can come downhill and be physical, but can offer you enough on the back end and coverage and plays really fast downhill as well. So Petrie is somebody that, because of all the safeties that got hurt and pulled out of this, can make his mark as the top guy here. And I think he projects as he could play in the box at the next level, maybe, come down in the box on rundowns and run with tight ends and also give you that third safety kind of role at the next level and fit in somewhere on special teams.
Man, Kerby Joseph is somebody that I'm really looking forward to watching because he's getting a lot of buzz. We're talking about potential top 50 pick from some people with Kerby Joseph, the safety from Illinois. All spotlight to me, you mentioned him at the top, Roger McCreary. He's the top guy going into this, one of the best cover players in the SEC, had the second highest coverage grade of any corner in the SEC from PFF this year. He's just been absolutely fantastic. Really hasn't even been playing cornerback this long. I got to talk to him and he said he didn't play corner before he got to Auburn. He thought he was going to play wide receiver at college football. And
they do that a lot.
And instead,
I think they did that with Igbenogany.
Right. He got a really big offer from Auburn. They transferred him over to corner. And here he is just in his fourth year playing the position, playing it at the best in the best conference in America. The thing that stands out to me with Roger McCreary after the weigh-ins, 29 1/4 inch arm length. Connor, that is of the 1 percentile in the NFL. Those are some short arms. And Austin Gale, my colleague over at PFF, he tweeted this, the only players with sub 30-inch arms with more than 400 snaps played at outside corner in a single season since 2017, Ross Cockrell, Dante Jackson, Cameron Sutton, Troy Hill, Avonte Maddox. There's only 5 corners in the NFL since 2017 who have been able to play a full starting role with shorter arms. And it's the same thing that we said with Khalil Shakir. The reason why you're worried about those shorter arms is because of the hand fighting, the contested catches, the catch radius, fighting for things when the ball gets into that 50-50 contact area. And then, of course, press coverage as well. Can you really be great with press coverage, kind of suffocate guys with length? And when you have 29-inch arms, you don't as a corner. That's just not an area where you're going to win. So you got to be a lot more sticky. You got to be right on the hip pocket, and you got to make up for it in other ways. And so looking forward to seeing what I see from Joseph, the Illinois safety, this upcoming week, but also how can McCreary play when in press coverage and when the ball comes to him, and can he really fare better against guys who might have a lot longer wingspans and a lot bigger catch radius? We'll see this week.
Yeah, we will. It's a huge question mark right now with McCreary, who, was facing an uphill battle with a couple of corners ahead of him already. That Sauce Gardner, McDuffie, and Stingley are all expected to be drafted ahead of him.
Yep.
Now, does this take him from a tier 2 expected pick to a tier 3 expected pick? Does this expose him a little bit? So, and it's real. Arm length is real. It depends on the team. Certain teams have thresholds with arm length. That outside corner, it's very real. I won't say he's off the board, but he might be off the board for the first 3 rounds for a couple of teams with that kind of threshold. So You're right. You got to go down here and show that it's not a problem. And for some teams, it still might be. So that's a disappointing number. There's just no way around it, honestly. It sucks to say.
A lot to prove for this secondary class, no doubt about it, as there is a lot to prove from all of these positions. I'm very excited to get these practices going. Connor and I are going to have 2 full days of practice from both coaching staffs before we come to you for the next episode of the podcast, which is coming out on Thursday. Connor, I'm excited, dude. I'm excited to get down there, excited to kick off Senior Bowl week. Even if it's not 80 or of the top 100 guys to get drafted, we're going to get some team difference makers this week, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jim did a great job with this roster. The amount of accepted invites is unbelievable. This is a great group of players. And it's a great group for everything, right? It's not just like, oh, I want my team to get better. It's also the fantasy community has their eyes on this group because it's really good wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, and these quarterbacks. Some of them might be starting next year. So the impact that this all-star game has, this all-star week has, is colossal, and we can't wait to see how it shakes out. And it's going to be a blast recording our first show together that is also recapping 4 total practices already by the time we record that night.
Whew, can't wait, man. There's going to be so many stock up, stock down, everything moments, new segments. We're talking about it all. We're going to break down everything that we see at the Senior Bowl as it pertains to the 2022 NFL Draft on the next episode. See you guys then.